Hi, guys. Today we will start with the story When the Fire Spoke. Thousands of years ago, when the land was covered in forests and the nights were full of cold and fear, fire was only a wild force. It lived in lightning, volcanoes, and wildfires. People feared it. But one day, a young man named Ra, a Neanderthal from a small tribe, stayed near a tree struck by lightning. He saw its warm glow, heard its crackle, and felt its power. He took a smoldering branch and carried it into a cave. Thus began the story of fire, tamed, warming, alive. At first, the tribe feared the flame, but Ra showed them how to live with it. He placed a piece of meat on stones near the fire. The meat sizzled and smelled new. It became soft, tasty, warm. It was the first cooked meal. The people were amazed. They began to copy his actions, and fire became part of their lives. Fire didn't live by itself. It needed feeding and protection. Ra appointed two people, Huna and Tor, to watch over it. They fed it branches, protected it from rain, shielded it from wind. Thus came the first keepers of the flame, those who understood that fire could die if left alone. The Cave of Shadows. In the cave where fire lived, drawings began to appear on the walls. Ra drew animals, fire, people with torches. He didn't know why, but felt it was important. Children sat and watched shadows dance on the walls. They imagined stories. Thus began art, born by firelight and silence. Fire against the cold winter came. The wind howled, snow fell. But inside the cave it was warm. People sat around the fire, told stories, shared food. Fire became the center of their world. It protected them from cold and loneliness. It was a friend. Embers on the journey. One day, the tribe decided to move on, to search for new lands. They took fire with them. In a clay bowl covered with moss and hide, warm embers smoldered. At every stop, they kindled it into flame. Fire walked with them like a living being. It became a symbol of their memory, their journey, and strength. Where fire died, they would not stay. Without it, it was as if they had no heart. Guardians of the mist. One day, during their journey, they found a place covered in thick fog. The visibility was poor, and they couldn't find their way. Ra ordered to keep the fire burning through the night. He knew the fog could confuse them, but fire would always show the right path. And so, they passed through the mist, following the glowing embers. Fire was their guiding star, and they understood it was with them in the hardest moments. The whirlwind and the light. One night, a strong wind arrived. It blew at the fire, trying to extinguish it. But the people could not let that happen. Ra and his companions gathered stones and shielded the fire from the wind. They learned to protect it not only from rain, but also from storms. Fire became not only a source of warmth, but also a force that could survive even the harshest conditions. The first campfire. After several years, when fire had become their faithful companion, the tribe decided to learn how to start it in any conditions. Ra taught people to find dry branches even in forests where everything was wet. They began to make fire using friction. Each new campfire was a small miracle. The people were proud of their knowledge and were ready to share it with others. The mystery of the cave. One day, they discovered a cave full of drawings. On the walls were images of people with fire, animals, and unknown creatures. Ra realized that fire was not just their friend, but part of something bigger that they didn't yet understand. The tribe's elders began to gather in this cave. They believed that fire could reveal secrets that were hidden from them, and this became their new quest. The sacrifice. During one storm, when the fire almost went out, the elders suggested making a sacrifice. They placed meat and fruit on the fire. "Let fire be with us, as we will be with it," said one of the wise men. This became a tribe tradition. Every year, they offered a sacrifice to fire as a symbol of gratitude and respect. The first storm winter came, and with it came the first real storm. The wind was so strong that the fire almost went out. The people fought, but couldn't handle it without fire. Ra, knowing they needed to keep the fire alive, sent his best warriors to gather more wood. They made it in time, and the fire survived. From that day on, fire became not just a friend, but a sacred guardian. Fire in the night. With each passing year, the tribe grew stronger, and fire became not only their protection, but also a source of inspiration. At night, sitting by the flame, they began to sing songs and tell stories. Fire warmed their bodies and soothed their souls. It became an essential part of their culture, connecting generations through fire and the shadows on the cave walls, the flame that calls. One day, deep in the heart of the forest, fire appeared by itself. It was a miracle that happened in a bright flash. The people couldn't believe their eyes. Fire had come without their help. They saw this as a sign. From that moment, fire became even more sacred. It was not just part of their lives, but something more, unknown, mysterious. Fire and stones. Ra and his people noticed that fire was changing not only their lives, but the land itself. Stones lying near the fire would heat up and become soft. This was a revelation. Stones could be turned into tools. Thus began a new path. Fire taught them not only to cook food, but also to make tools, which became the foundation of their survival. The legend of fire rumors. Of the fire's miracles began to spread among other tribes. Fire became a symbol of strength and knowledge. People came from afar to see how the fire burned and learned from Ra's tribe how to keep it alive. It was a time of great change, when fire began to connect not only the people of the tribe, but also neighboring tribes, creating bonds through this sacred gift. Death and rebirth. One day, the elder of the tribe, wise Nero, felt that his time had come. He gathered everyone close to him and said, "When I am gone, fire will be your friend. It must live. Keep it alive." Thus, Nero passed on his wisdom, and when he was gone, the fire continued to burn. It was a symbol of life that does not fade away, but continues in a new generation. New horizons. After Nero's death, the tribe continued to seek new ways and opportunities to improve their lives. Fire became not just a source of warmth, but a symbol of hope for the future. The tribe decided to explore new lands, hoping to find more resources to sustain the fire and life. During this time, they met other tribes, and fire became the bond between them. Those who could make fire were at the center of attention, and their knowledge was the most valued. Fire in the sky. One night, as everyone sat around the campfire, an unusual star appeared in the sky. It burned brighter than all the others, and the people saw it as a sign. Ra looked at the fire and said, "This is the fire of the heavens, our ally who watches over us." The star became a symbol of a higher power and a guiding light for their people. The people believed that fire was not only on earth but also in the skies, and that its light would always be with them. The guiding spark months passed, and the tribe began to settle in new territories. They found beautiful valleys and lakes where fire could burn even brighter. In these places, fire not only warmed them, but also gave them the strength for new growth and development. Ra led the tribe to a source that allowed them to ignite fire more quickly. Fire became a symbol of their progress, and each new campfire marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Secret fires. One day during their travels, they discovered ancient caves covered with drawings and symbols. Among them were images of fire with which they believed ancient people communicated. These fires were sacred, and they thought fire could reveal answers to questions that troubled them. The tribe began to meditate by these fires, hoping to gain wisdom. The fire that never died. Years passed, and the fire that had been with them from the beginning became their irreplaceable companion. It burned in their homes, warming them during cold nights. It burned in their hearts, reminding them how important it was to protect and cherish it. Fire became a part of their essence. The people understood that without fire, they could not survive. It was their ally, their friend, and an eternal source of life. The first storm. One day when the tribe was far from home, they found themselves in the center of a terrible storm. Thunder rumbled, rain poured relentlessly, and the wind uprooted trees. The fire almost went out, but at the last moment, Ra and his people found shelter in a cave. They made a fire inside, and despite the storm outside, the fire continued to burn. The people understood that the power of fire was not just in warming them, but in its ability to survive even in the harshest conditions. In search of light. After the storm, the tribe decided to search for new places to live where the fire could burn safely. They traveled through forests and fields, overcoming hardships, but always searching for the light that would illuminate their path. They found a place by a large lake where there were no strong winds or storms. This place became their new home, and the fire burned there always, reminding them that every new day was a new chance for growth. Fire as a symbol of life. Over time, fire became a symbol of all that was alive. It was not just a physical element, but part of their beliefs. The tribe began to hold ceremonies in honor of fire, singing songs and dancing around the flames. They believed that fire was the connection between people and the gods. Each campfire was like a small ritual where people expressed their gratitude for life, warmth, and light that they received from fire. The fire guardians, after many years, when fire had become the main source of life, the tribe created their tradition, fire guardians. These were people whose task was to keep the fire alive in any conditions. They trained in the art of creating fire and maintaining the flame. The fire guardians were respected members of the tribe, and their knowledge was highly valued. They traveled, teaching other tribes how to properly keep fire and use its power. Fire and the moon. One night, when the fire burned particularly bright, the moon rose above the horizon. Its light reflected in the water, creating the illusion that two fires, one on the earth, the other in the sky, merged into one. The people sat by the fire, watching this spectacle, and felt that their connection with fire and nature had deepened. They believed that the moon was the sister of fire, and that fire, like the moon, would always follow them, lighting their way in the night. Legends of the first fires. Over the years, when fire became an integral part of their lives, the tribe began to pass down stories of the first fires. These were tales of how people learned to make fire, how they overcame dangers, how fire saved them from predators and cold nights. These stories became an important part of their culture, passed down from generation to generation. Fire became not just a physical element, but a symbol of hope and struggle. People began to believe that every campfire was part of a great legend of survival. The creation of fire. When fire first began to play an important role in people's lives, they started to see it as a gift from the gods. At night, around the fire, the elders told legends about how the gods gave people this sacred fire so they could survive and thrive. Every spark, every flare of the flame became a symbol of divine intervention. People believed they were chosen to keep the fire and pass its knowledge on to future generations. Fire and water. One day, during a severe drought, the tribe found themselves on the verge of starving. They tried to find water, but due to the relentless heat, the sources had dried up. Then Ra, taking fire with him, headed towards a distant lake. He believed that fire would guide them to water. After several days, led by the fire, they found new sources of water and saved themselves. This event became a significant moment in the tribe's life, and they began to believe that fire and water could work together, helping them survive. The wisdom of fire. With each passing year, the wisdom of the tribe continued to grow. They became better at understanding fire, its power, and nature. Ra began to teach the younger people how to properly handle fire and keep it alive in any conditions. He explained to them that fire was not just a force of destruction, but also of creation. Fire became a metaphor for their lives, something that could either create or destroy, depending on how it was used. The resurrection of fire. On one of the darkest days, when the tribe's fire went out due to a powerful storm, Ra stood by the empty campfire and prayed. He asked the gods to return the fire to them, and at that moment, when hope was almost gone, a new fire appeared in the darkness. A spark of fire rekindled, and the tribe understood that fire, despite all the hardships, would always return if they kept faith in its power. The Fire Keepers. After the return of the fire, the tribe decided to form a special group that would become the Guardians of the Fire. These people were trained not only in maintaining the fire, but also in protecting it from potential threats. Fire had become their strength, and they became a symbol of determination and resilience. The Fire Keepers would patrol at night, ensuring that the fire did not go out. They trained in the art of making fire under any condition, so that if disaster struck again, they could bring back light and warmth, teaching the next generation. Over time, the elders began passing on their knowledge about fire to the younger generation. They told children and teenagers how important it was to preserve fire and how to work with it to improve life. The youth were eager to learn this vital skill, and everyone understood that fire was crucial to their survival. The training was not just the transfer of knowledge, but also part of a coming-of-age ritual that everyone had to go through to become a full member of the tribe. Fire in the forest. The forest that surrounded their home was an important part of their life. The trees provided wood for fire and also protected them from the cold and winds. But one day, after a severe drought, the forest began to burn. The fire became a threat to their home. Ra gathered the people and told them that the fire they used for their benefit could become the cause of destruction. They learned how to control fire, purging it and channeling its power. This was an important lesson that they never forgot. The legend of the Great Fire. Over the years, the tribe created their own legend of the Great Fire. It was a story about how their ancestors found fire and brought it to the world of humans. The legend said that fire was a gift from the gods, and only those who were worthy could hold it in their hands. This story was passed down in songs and dances, and every campfire lit within their tribe was like a continuation of this great legend. Everyone believed that fire was not just an element of nature, but a part of their destiny. Fire and darkness. In one of the darkest periods for the tribe, when there was neither food, nor water, nor fire, the people began to lose hope. They walked through the darkness, full of fear and despair. But at that moment, when everything seemed lost, Ra found fire again. It was like a beam of light in the darkness, returning them hope and faith in the future. Fire became for them not only a source of warmth, but a symbol that even in the darkest times, one can always find a way to the light. The first sparks in the night. Every night when they gathered around the fire, people watched the flames as they swayed and sparkled. Every spark falling into the dark night seemed like a mysterious message. Ra taught the tribe to see in these sparks a symbol of strength and spirit that they held in their hearts. It was in these moments of nightly silence that fire became not just a tool for survival, but a source of deep reflection on life and death, on how important it was to keep the fire alive within their souls. The disappearing fires. One day, when it was time to search for new lands, the tribe left their campfire behind to embark on their journey. For a long time, they traveled through lifeless expanses where there was neither water nor fire. Without their sacred fire, the people began to feel the loss. At one point on the edge of the wasteland, Ra decided to create fire again, to to restore their connection with their past knowledge. It was a difficult challenge, but he succeeded in bringing fire back, and the tribe once again felt the strength and resilience they so desperately needed. The flame of life. Now that fire had become an integral part of their existence, people began to see it as more than just a means of survival. Fire became a symbol of life, energy, and even spirit. It was not just an object, but an energy that permeated their lives, making them bright and full of meaning. Ra, knowing this, often reminded his people, fire not only warms the body, it illuminates our hearts and guides our way. The power of the night, fire. One day when a cold night fell and the tribe gathered around the fire, its flames burned brighter than ever before. People felt its magical power, as if the night itself was filled with the light coming from the fire. It was a night when fire became for them not just a source of warmth, but a source of power that could fight any dark forces. Fire became a symbol not only of physical safety, but also of the inner strength of the tribe. The lessons of fire. With each passing year, every campfire reminded the people of the hardships they had overcome. Fire became not just an element, but a teacher. It taught them resilience, patience, and the ability to fight against nature. Every person in the tribe became part of this great story of fire, and their lives were filled with the lessons it provided. Ra understood that fire was not just a gift, it was a trial that helped people become stronger. Fire is art. Over time, fire became not only an essential element for survival, but also a part of their culture. The elders began teaching the children to create drawings on the walls of caves, using fire as a tool for creativity. The tribe made images of animals, hunting scenes, and symbols that represented their connection with nature and the spirits. This marked a new phase when fire became an important part of their art, not just an item for physical existence. The sacred fire ritual. Every year, on the longest day, the tribe held a ritual dedicated to fire. Everyone gathered around the fire, and each person had to tell their story about how fire had helped them in life. These stories became part of their heritage, passed down from generation to generation. For the tribe, this ritual was important, not only because it maintained the connection with their ancestors, but also because it reminded everyone of how valuable fire was in their lives. Fire as light in the darkness. In times of great fear or hardship, when the tribe lost confidence in itself, fire always remained their light in the darkness. It was what helped them keep moving forward, despite all the difficulties. In those moments when they felt alone, fire served as a reminder that they were not alone, that there was a light guiding them to the future. Ra often said, "When it is dark, fire is not just light, it is your friend who will not leave you." Fire in the heart of each one. With each passing year, fire became not just a tool, but a part of the soul of every person in the tribe. They saw it as a symbol of their inner strength and resilience. People understood that fire not only warmed their bodies, but also filled their hearts with confidence. Ra often repeated, "Fire is not just a flame, it is the spirit that helps us be who we are." The wisdom of fire. Years passed and the tribe grew wise. They understood that fire was not just a gift, but also a responsibility. They learned to live with it, respect its power, and understand that fire required not only care, but also understanding. Fire became a symbol for them, not only of survival, but also of wisdom. Ra, as he grew older, would say, "Fire teaches us many things, but the most important thing it teaches is that true strength is not in the fire, but in how we use it." The path to perfection. With each passing year, the tribe became more skilled at handling fire. They learned not only how to maintain it, but also how to use it for many needs. They cooked food, warmed themselves, defended against wild animals, and illuminated their nights. Yet despite their expertise, They increasingly felt that fire was not just a practical necessity, but something much greater, connected to their spirit. Ra taught that fire symbolized the path to perfection, and the more they learned about it, the more knowledge about the world and themselves they discovered. Fire and darkness. Dark times sometimes came when the sky was covered with clouds and the stars disappeared. The tribe could not find its way, and the night seemed endless. But even during these times when everything seemed lost, fire was their support. It not only lit their way, but also reminded them that darkness, no matter how thick, could never overshadow light if it was kept alive by the hearts of the people. Ra always said, "Do not fear the darkness. As long as we have fire, we will always see the light." The secret of the flame. One day, when fire had once again become not just a source of warmth, but a source of strength for the tribe, Ra wondered what more he could do to make fire even more sacred. He decided to go alone deep into the forest, where there were no people or settlements, to learn from nature itself. There, in the shadows of ancient trees, he felt the presence of a power he had never realized before. Fire was not just an element, it was the link between all living beings. Ra returned with a new understanding and shared it with the tribe. The flame that does not extinguish. With each passing year, fire became more and more significant to the tribe. It was not just a source of warmth and light, but also a symbol of their life force. People learned to keep the flame alive not only in the campfire, but in their hearts. Fire became part of them, and they felt its presence in every moment of their lives. Ra taught that fire, like life, could be difficult and unpredictable, but true strength lay in keeping its flame alive despite everything. The flame and the rain. One day, as the skies began to darken and the wind brought with it rain, the tribe felt their fire starting to fade. It was the first test of fire they had faced since learning how to create it. They tried to protect it, but the forces of nature were stronger. Yet, even when the fire was extinguished, they did not lose hope. Ra, seeing this, said, "Fire is not just a flame, it is our strength, which stays with us even when it is gone. The inner fire that burns in each of us will always shine." The rebirth of fire. After the fire was extinguished, the tribe was shaken. They realized that their dependence on fire was not only physical, but also spiritual. This was an important trial of their willpower. The next morning, despite the rain, they began searching for ways to rekindle the flame. Ra suggested gathering sticks and using friction to start the fire, just as their ancestors had done. For hours they tried, but eventually the fire was rekindled. This became a symbol of their resilience and hope. Fire as a teacher. With each passing day, fire became more and more of a teacher to the tribe. It taught patience, respect for nature, and its forces. Through mastering fire, people began to understand the importance of balance between its power and its danger. They learned not only how to start a fire, but also how to control it, preventing it from spiraling out of control. Ra always said, "Fire teaches us many things, but the most important is to respect its power, because even a small flame can become a destructive storm." Fire and the forces of nature. Over time, the tribe began to understand that fire could not exist without nature. It was inseparable from the surrounding world, and in order to preserve it, they had to maintain harmony with the earth and the sky. When the fire began to fade again due to strong winds, the tribe realized that their connection to nature had to be even stronger. Ra reminded everyone, fire and nature are one. We cannot live without fire, but fire cannot live without nature. Fire is a connection between generations. With each passing year, the tribe became more and more dependent on fire, and with each new generation, this dependency grew deeper. Fire connected them to their ancestors, for they knew their ancestors used it just as they did. Ra often told his children, Fire not only gives us life, it connects us to those who came before us, to those who gave us this gift. Fire became for them not just a resource, but a part of their soul. Fire as a symbol of life. Fire became a symbol of life and the endless cycle. It was what warmed them in winter, helped them cook food and hunt, but it was also what destroyed everything in its path, if not controlled. For the tribe, fire was both life force and a destructive force of nature. Ra would tell the children, fire reminds us that life is not just creation, but also destruction. Everything we build can be destroyed, and that too is part of life. But this is the power of fire. It gives us the opportunity to start again. Fire in the heart. The flame of fire became a part of their life. But the true strength of fire was hidden not in its visibility, but in what it awakened in their hearts. People began to understand that in order to keep the fire burning, they needed to keep the fire inside themselves. The fire of determination, strength, and courage. Ra often said, "It is not the fire in the stone that makes us strong, but the fire in the heart." Fire in the tribes over time, other tribes began to notice how fire was changing the life of Ra's tribe. Some came to ask for fire, while others tried to take it by force. But Ra always taught that fire was a gift that could not be given without understanding its power. He said, "Fire is not just fire, it carries responsibility. Those who do not understand this are not worthy of it." And although many tribes tried to get fire, they did not understand its true power. Fire and death fire was not just a source of life, but also a destructive force. The tribe began to realize that fire could be dangerous if misused. One day, during a strong wind, the fire from their camp broke free and spread across the forest. Many animals perished, and the fire destroyed parts of the forest. It was a hard trial for the tribe, and Ra understood that fire should not be seen as just an ally. He said, "We must remember that even the brightest flame can burn everything we love." Fire and wisdom. After the fire incident in the forest, the tribe became much more cautious in their actions. Fire was no longer just a tool for survival. It became a symbol of wisdom. Ra taught that in every fire, there was not only strength, but also a lesson. He said, "He who understands fire understands life. For fire is beginning and end, life and death, creation and destruction." The tribe began to learn from fire and treat it with respect and caution. Fire and love. Over time, the tribe began to realize that fire not only nourished their bodies, but also warmed their souls. They began to notice how fire became a symbol of love and mutual aid. When someone in the tribe was in need, fire became a symbol that they were not alone. In every stone from which fire burned, the tribe saw support and care for one another. Ra often said, "Fire is not just light. It is the warmth we give to each other. Without love, fire loses its strength." The eternal flame. When the tribe learned to control fire, its significance grew even deeper. Fire became a symbol of eternal life and resilience. It burned in their hearts and was a faithful companion during dark nights. It was not just a source of warmth or food, but also the light that illuminated their path. The tribe understood that fire was the connection between the past, the present, and the future. Ra said, "When we keep the fire burning, we keep the connection with those who came before us and those who will come after us." Fire and struggle. Fire not only warmed them, but also served as a tool in battle. It was a weapon that the tribe used to defend their territory. They learned to set fire to the grass to create barriers for their enemies, and also use fire to scare off wild animals. Fire became not only a friend, but also a protector of the tribe. Ra taught his children, fire can be a friend, but also an enemy. It helps. Fire in the future. Over time, fire became not only a symbol of life, but also of hope. the tribe realized that with fire, they could survive any calamity. Fire became a symbol of endless possibilities for them. It opened up new horizons, new places, new hunts, new seasons. Fire was no longer just a necessity, but something that would be passed on to future generations. Ra said, "We pass on fire as we pass on knowledge. It will burn in the hearts of our children and grandchildren when we are gone." Fire and memories. When the tribe gathered their last supplies of food and water, they finally realized that fire was not just about survival. It was a source of memory and lessons. In the evenings, they sat around the fire, recalling the days when fire was new and how now it had become a part of their life. Fire helped them remember and relive the most important moments. Ra said, "Every flame is a memory of our past and a reminder that we must cherish every moment, every day." Fire and honor. For the tribe, fire became a symbol of honor. Those who could handle fire were respected within the tribe. Anyone who contributed to maintaining the fire became part of something greater. Fire became a measure of honor, strength, and wisdom. Ra said, "Fire is not just an element. It is part of our soul, our honor. It burns within us and shows that we are capable of more than we can imagine." Fire's influence on nature. Fire also began to change the nature around them. When the tribe used fire for hunting, forests became open and grass would burn away, making space for new plants and animals. But this process was not painless. Every use of fire left a mark on the earth, and the tribe began to understand that they must be careful and cautious in how they used it. Raya said, "When we touch the earth, it feels us. Fire is a gift, but also a responsibility." The tribe began to care for nature, understanding that fire could be both a friend and a destroyer. The first winter with fire. When the first winter after mastering fire arrived, the tribe felt the full importance of fire as a means of survival. The harsh cold forced them to gather around the fire. However, they also realized that fire was not immortal. Sometimes the flame would go out, and that was when real danger arrived. The tribe learned to appreciate every flame and give it the proper attention. Ra said, "We must care for the fire as for another brother. Without it, we will not survive." With each passing day, the tribe became more inventive in keeping the fire alive in the harshest conditions. Fire and mystery. Fire became not only a tool for survival, but also a symbol of mysteries hidden from the tribe's eyes. They began to question its origin and meaning. Why does fire appear in stone? And why does the sky burn with fire during lightning? These questions became the main topics of discussion around the fire, but no one could answer them. It became part of the fire's magic. Ra said, "Fire holds many mysteries within itself. It gives us answers, but also makes us seek them." The tribe began to respect fire as something more than just an element. It was an unknown force that controlled their fate. Troubles with fire. From time to time, the tribe faced problems because of fire. Sometimes they couldn't start it, especially on rainy days when materials for kindling were wet. These difficulties became a test for them. In such moments, they would gather around the fire again and discuss what needed to be done to learn how to overcome these challenges. Ra said, "Fire, like life, does not always burn brightly. Sometimes it fades, but we must keep it going, even when it is hard." The tribe began to understand that fire was not just a means of life, but also a symbol of their strength and resilience. Fire and brotherhood. With each passing day, fire became an increasingly important part of their lives. It symbolized brotherhood, mutual aid, and care. When fire was at the center of the camp, everyone felt connected to each other. People shared warmth and light, helping each other during difficult times. Ra often said, "Fire is not just warmth for the body, but also for the soul. When we share fire, we share a part of ourselves." The tribe began to live in harmony with fire, understanding that it was a gift that should unite them all. Fire and art. Over time, fire became not only a symbol of survival, but also an important part of the tribe's culture. People began painting scenes with fire on the walls of caves, creating images that reflected their lives. Fire became an inspiration for their art, expressing not only practical needs, but also deep emotions. Ra said, "Art with fire is our soul, our memory, our mark on this world." The tribe began to understand that through fire, they could pass on their experiences and thoughts, leaving their stories for future generations. Fire and kinship. Fire became an inseparable part of the tribe's family traditions. Each family had its own way of starting a fire, its unique method of keeping the flame alive. This was passed down from generation to generation as a precious gift that connected them with their ancestors. Ra said, "When we start a fire in our home, we connect with those who came before us and those who will come after us." Fire became not just an element, but a symbol of family strength and intergenerational connection. Fire and change. Fire continued to change the tribe's life. With its help, they began to improve their tools by working with metal and even learned to create the first ceramic vessels. These new technologies led to the emergence of new forms of society, new ways of hunting and defense. But with every new discovery came new challenges. The tribe began to care even more about preserving fire, because now its power was even greater. Ra said, "With each new knowledge, we become stronger, but with this strength comes responsibility." Fire began to change not only the tribe's everyday life, but also their relationship with the world. Fire and bonds. Fire continued to play a central role in the tribe's life, strengthening the bonds between people. Each member of the tribe felt a responsibility for the fire and for others. People learned to work together to maintain the flame and protect each other from dangers. These efforts united them and created strong bonds of friendship and respect. Raya said, "Fire is our connection, our strength. When we keep it burning, we keep each other strong." The tribe became a true family with each member caring for the other. Fire and future generations. Each year, the tribe became more skilled in handling fire. However, despite this experience, they always understood that fire was not something to be taken lightly. It was a gift that required attention and respect. The tribe prepared the next generations to handle fire with the same care as their ancestors. Ra said, "We pass on fire not only in the flame, but also in our hearts." The tribe understood that fire was not just a part of their life, but something greater that needed to be passed down from generation to generation. Fire rituals. Over time, the tribe developed special rituals connected with fire. Fire became not just an element of everyday life, but a sacred symbol. Before important events such as hunting or the change of seasons, the tribe performed ceremonies involving fire. These rituals helped establish a connection with the spirits of their ancestors and also protect the tribe from possible dangers. Raya often reminded his people, "Fire is our life and our death. We must treat with respect that which gives us strength." These rituals became an important part of the culture, strengthening the tribe's unity and belief in the forces of nature. Fire and trials. The tribe decided to test their strength and knowledge by setting challenges involving fire. Young people underwent hardships to prove their ability to handle fire and survive in extreme conditions. These trials strengthened their spirit and readiness for any threat. Ra said, "Fire tests us. It can be a friend and it can be an enemy. We must be ready for any trial." With each new challenge, the tribe became stronger and more united. Fire and the night sky. Every night, sitting around the fire, the tribe would watch the sky, where lightning pierced the darkness. They believed that lightning was fire from the heavens, sent by the ancestors to light their way. The tribe began to understand that fire was not only in their hands, but also in nature, all around them. Ra often said, "We are but a part of the great fire. It burns everywhere, even in the heavens." Fire became not just a symbol, but a connecting link between the earth and the sky. Fire and knowledge. Fire continued to serve not only for survival, but also for accumulating knowledge. The tribe began using fire to create the first written symbols, which became reflections of their experiences and wisdom. These symbols were used to record important events, stories, and even to pass on knowledge to future generations. Ra said, "Fire is not just light, but memory. It holds our past and passes it on to those who come after us." The tribe began to realize that fire served not only practical needs, but also as a means of preserving and passing on knowledge. Fire and the tribe's life. The tribe began to live in complete harmony with fire, realizing that its power and magic were endless. Fire became their life and their death, their friend and their enemy. It was an inseparable part of everything they did, and even their dreams were filled with fire. Ra said, "Fire is not just a part of us, it is life itself. We can only keep it alive. As we keep each other alive." The tribe continued to live, moving forward, never forgetting that fire was a gift they had received, and one they must pass on to future generations. Fire and new horizons. When the tribe learned to fully harness fire, they began to think about other possibilities this gift could open up. Ra and his people began to travel farther, exploring new lands where fire could become an even more powerful ally. They understood that fire was the key to their future. One night, sitting around the fire, Ra said, "We are just beginning to understand that fire is not the end. It is the beginning of a new path that will open the world before us." Fire had opened new horizons, and the tribe was ready to follow it. Fire and the trials of nature. On their way to new lands, the tribe faced dangerous natural forces. Storms, extreme cold, and even earthquakes tested their ability to survive. But fire was always with them, and it became the element that helped them endure the hardships. Fire doesn't save us from all troubles, but it gives us the strength to fight them, Ra'ah would say. He reminded his people that in fire, as in life, there is always danger, but there is also light that guides them forward. Fire and the wisdom of ancestors. In their travels, the tribe often recalled the stories of their ancestors. Ra taught that fire was not only their friend, but also their teacher. He said, "Our ancestors left us fire, and this fire carries their wisdom. We must learn from the fire just as they did." The tribe began to understand that fire was not just a means of survival, but a lesson that needed to be passed on to future generations. Fire and unity. Each time the tribe faced danger, it became even more united. Fire played a crucial role in bringing people together, making them work together to protect and support one another. Ra would say, "Fire unites us. When we sit around the fire, we are all equal." The tribe understood that fire was not just warmth and light, but also a force that created a bond among all its members. Fire and the completion of the journey. The tribe reached new lands, and the fire that had once been their only ally in dark times now became a symbol of their victory and new life. Ra'ah said, "We have traveled a long path, but fire has always been with us. It has been our friend, our guide, and our strength." The tribe celebrated their new beginning, realizing that fire had now become part of their story, part of their life. Fire and returning to the roots. With new agricultural knowledge and knowledge of fire making, the tribe decided to return to the basics, their connection with nature. They began developing agriculture, and fire became not only a source of warmth and light, but also a crucial element for food preparation. More and more people turned to fire to ensure their sustenance and protection. Ra continued to teach his people, "Fire is not only for us, it is for the earth that gives us life. We must care for it, as it cares for us." With each passing day, the tribe became more and more connected to the land and fire. fire and the new wonders of nature. Once the tribe had mastered the new lands, they began to notice incredible wonders of nature. Huge waterfalls, blooming forests, and strange animals they had never seen before became part of their lives. Fire continued to serve not only as a source of warmth, but also as a symbol of their ability to overcome any obstacle. Ra would say to his people, "Fire is what helps us uncover the mysteries of the world. It gives light so we can see what is hidden in the darkness." And indeed, thanks to fire, the tribe began to see the world in a new light. Fire and the first technologies. With the development of agriculture and more complex hunting methods, the tribe began to use fire to create new technologies. They learned to make tools from stone and wood, and fire became an integral part of their production process. It was used for hardening tools, building the first shelters, and even creating the first fabrics. Ra watched this progress with pride, saying, "Fire is not only our past, but our future. It will help us create a world where we can live." The tribe's technologies were advancing, and fire remained their faithful companion. Fire and connection with the spirits. In their journey, the tribe continued to feel that fire was not just an element of nature, but a bridge between the world of the living and the world of the spirits. Ra taught his people that fire was their connection to the ancestors and spirits who watched over them. Every time the tribe lit a fire, they felt the energy of the flame filling them, as if the spirits themselves were near. Fire is the light that guides us to our ancestors, Raya would say. And in the nighttime fires, the tribe saw not only the flame, but also the shadows of their ancestors, living in their hearts. Fire, an eternal memory. With each passing year, fire became more and more significant to the tribe. It became not only a physical element, but also a part of their cultural heritage. The tribe began to create rituals and traditions connected with fire, passed down from generation to generation. Fire is the memory of our ancestors. It will burn as long as we live, Ra would say. And indeed, fire was a symbol of their life, their strength, and their connection to those who came before them. Fire in the season of great cold one year, winter came earlier than usual, with a force the tribe had never known. Everything froze, animals vanished deep into the forest, and water turned to thick ice. Only fire remained alive. It roared in every shelter, warming bodies and hearts. People gathered close to the flames, telling stories, sharing food, and keeping the darkness at bay. Ra said, "Fire is our soul. As long as it burns, we live." And that winter, the tribe understood. Without fire, there would be no hope. Fire and the first music. As the days grew shorter and nights longer, someone began to tap a stick against a stone, following the rhythm of the flames. It was a new sound, as if the earth itself was singing with fire. Others joined in, howling, clapping, scraping. Thus, the first music was born. Fire danced in return, sparks flying, and each evening turned into a celebration. Music warmed the soul as fire warmed the body. Raya said, "We have found another language, the language of rhythm, the language of the heart. Fire and the meeting of tribes." One day, another tribe appeared at the edge of their hunting lands. At first, people were afraid. Strangers always meant danger, but Ra offered a fire. He invited the outsiders to sit by the flame. They approached cautiously, but seeing the warmth, they knew it was not a trap. That night, two tribes ate, laughed, and shared stories. Fire became the bridge. Since then, whenever the tribe met a stranger, they offered fire first. Fire and the first symbol. One day, a child scratched a sign on a wall using charcoal, a circle with a line inside. He had seen it in the flame. Ra looked and said, "This is not just a drawing, it is memory." The tribe began creating symbols to tell their stories. It was the first form of writing. They burned sticks, marked stones. Fire became not just light, but ink. It was the beginning of memory that could last forever. Fire and the voice of the sky. During a thunderstorm, one elder heard familiar sounds in the roar of the thunder. He said, "It is the sky speaking to the fire." People began to listen more closely to storms, wind, the crackling of branches. Everything sounded like an echo of flame. They understood the world was alive, and fire was its language. Raya said, "If we learn to listen, we will never be alone." And in every thunderclap, they heard a voice calling them home. Fire and the hunter's return. Many moons ago, a hunter wandered far into the mountains and did not return. He was believed dead. But one day he appeared in the mist near the cave, wrapped in furs, his eyes full of fire. He told how he got lost in a storm and survived because he kept a glowing ember alive. He hid it, fed it with twigs, and eventually built a fire. The tribe listened breathlessly. From then on, an ember became a symbol of hope and perseverance. Fire and the great shadow. One day, a massive beast came into the valley, something no one had ever seen. It was like a shadow covered in fur, moving slowly and destroying everything in its path. The tribe prepared to flee in panic, but Ra had another idea. At night, they lit dozens of fires, surrounding the valley in light and smoke. The beast hesitated and did not approach. By morning, it had left. Fire had saved them. Ra said, "When fear is great, let fire be greater." Fire and the dance of ash. After a great storm had knocked down many trees, the tribe decided to hold a cleansing. They placed the broken branches in a massive circle and lit a fire. Everyone gathered and began to dance. Ash rose into the air, carried by the wind, and it seemed as if the spirits of the ancestors were spinning above them. It was a dance of memory. From that day on, they repeated the ritual each spring to cleanse the land and their hearts. Fire and the voice of the rock. In a distant cave, they found a strange alcove. When a fire was lit inside, the walls began to hum, as if the rock was speaking. The flames sang and the sound grew, as if someone deep underground was responding. People sat in silence, listening. Ra said, "The rock remembers." Fire unlocks its voice. From then on, the place became sacred. No one spoke there. They only listened. Fire and the first bridge. In spring, the river flooded and split the tribe in two. People on each bank couldn't reach one another. Ra and the elders made torches and followed the river until they found a fallen tree. They burned dry grass to scare off animals and built the first bridge from logs, working by firelight. By night, the bridge stood. From then on, fire helped them connect not just shores, but destinies. Fire and the fear of forgetting. One day, the tribe's elder passed away, taking many stories with him. The people felt a great emptiness. Ra gathered everyone around the great fire and said, "We will lose no more memories." From that night on, each evening by the fire, someone would tell an old story and the children would repeat it. This became the way they passed on memory. Fire became a place where time didn't die, where the past lived on in words. Fire and the bones of the earth. While digging pits to store meat, the tribe found massive bones, like animal bones, but much larger. Raya said, "These are the bones of the earth. Let us bring them light." They lit a fire beside the bones and left food as an offering. The next morning, the sky was clearer, the wind warmer. The people felt a connection to something ancient. Since then, they never touched the strange bones. Instead, they brought fire as a sign of respect for the world's memory. Fire and the fire within. On a long journey, a young hunter got lost. At night, he had no wood to build a fire. Then, he remembered Ra's words. Fire lives inside us too. He kept warm by moving, thinking, and singing. At dawn, he found a dry branch, rubbed it between his palms until it sparked and made a flame. From that day, they taught, if you carry fire inside, you'll never be lost. Fire in the light. Through snow. One day, snow fell for 3 days without stopping. It covered everything, even the fires. The tribe hid in the cave, hungry and afraid. Then, an old man took dry bark, moss remnants, and flint, and slowly trembling, kindled a tiny spark. People gathered around it like it was the sun. The fire grew, and its light pushed back the fear. Ra said, "When all is hidden, let fire remind us we are still here." Fire and the earth's vow. After heavy rains, the ground sank, and a crack split the village. Ra stood at its edge and said, "The earth is speaking. We must listen." The tribe gathered stones, broke branches, and lit a sacred fire by the rift. People sat there all night in silence. By morning, the land was calm. Thus, a vow was born. Whenever the earth spoke, through thunder, cracks, or storms, they would light a fire, a sign of respect to the land. Fire and the starless night. One night, the sky was completely covered with clouds. No stars, no moon. People felt as if the world had disappeared. Ra ordered many fires to be lit and arranged in a circle. Fire became the stars of the earth. The children looked at them as if they were the sky. Ra said, "When the light above is gone, light it below. We can be the light ourselves." Fire and the mirror stone. A boy named To found a strange black stone, smooth and shiny. He held it up to the fire and saw the flame reflected inside. He cried, "Fire inside the stone!" People gathered. Ra looked and said, "Sometimes fire hides, but if you find the world's mirror, it will show you its heart." The stone was kept as a wonder, and every child looked into it to see the fire within themselves. Fire and the giant. Trackle one day, the tribe saw a giant footprint in the sand by the river, far larger than any known animal. No one knew whose it was. People were afraid. Ra said, "Whoever it was, it's already gone. Let it know we live with fire." They built a fire right in the center of the print, and the smoke rose high into the sky. That was their answer. Not fear, but light. No unknown beast came after that. Fire and the wind's home. The tribe found a high place where the wind never stopped. Fires couldn't be lit there. Flames always died. Then the children built a circle of stones, packed moss and bark tightly. After many tries, they succeeded. The fire burned. The wind howled, but could not put it out. They named the place Home of the Wind, and there they taught patience. If even the wind cannot kill your fire, you are strong. Fire and the first vessel. A woman named La watched how fire boiled water in a pit, lined with stones. She decided to make something similar, shaping a bowl from clay and firing it in the flame. It became a cup. When water was poured into it and placed near the fire, it didn't crack. The tribe was amazed. It was the first vessel. Ra said, "Now we can not only eat but store. Fire has taught us not only to burn, but to create." Fire and the spirits of smoke. During a smoke ritual, when herbs burned and white swirls rose, the elder said, "Look, faces in the smoke." The people looked closely and saw shapes, like someone whispering from the air. Ra said, "These are the spirits of those who've passed. They come when we remember." Since then, before every major decision, the tribe burned herbs in fire, watched the smoke, and listened to the silence. Fire and the echo break. In a valley where echo was always present, the tribe lit a fire. But that night, no response. People were afraid. The mountains are silent. Ra threw a stone into the fire, and in that instant, the echo returned, loud like a roar. "The mountains hear fire," he said. From then on, whenever they reached new places, they first lit a fire and listened, waiting to see if the land would answer. Fire and the salt of the earth. One day, the tribe found a white powder near the shore. They tried roasting fish on it, and the taste was stronger, better. Raya said, "The earth gave us salt, and fire revealed its power." From then on, they kept salt near the fire and cooked with care. It was the beginning of flavor. when food became more than survival, it became craft. Fire and the shadow game. When the children grew bored during a long winter, Ra showed them how shadows moved on cave walls from the flame. They began making stories: bears, hunters, suns. Thus was born the shadow game. At night, the tribe gathered and each one told their tale. Fire not only warmed them, it entertained. It was the first form of theater. Fire became a stage. Fire and the rift between tribes. When two tribes quarreled over land, Ra proposed a meeting. In the middle of the field, they lit one great fire. All sat around it without weapons. The flame shone equally on all. Ra said, "Fire knows no enemies. Let us try the same." After a long silence, conversation began. It was the first peaceful council. Fire became the mediator. Fire and the vanished tracks. After a night of heavy rain, everything was erased. No tracks, no scent. The tribe felt fear, as if the world had begun again. Ra lit a fire in the center of camp and said, "Let fire remember us if the earth forgets." Around the fire, dry patches remained, like signatures of their presence. Ever since, whenever the tribe felt lost, they lit a fire to reclaim their trail. Fire and the feathers of the sky. One day, white feathers began falling from the sky, light and cold. Children tried to catch them, but they melted. It was the tribe's first snow. People shivered. Ra ordered a large fire to be built, covered with hides, and they huddled close. "As long as the flame burns, we will not vanish," he said. Fire became their answer to winter. Fire and the night of separation. One day, a hunter didn't return. Everyone waited, and Ra lit a fire and said, "He'll find his way home if he sees the light." The fire burned for 3 nights. On the 4th, the hunter returned, exhausted but alive. "I saw the light above the trees. It led me," he said. Since then, they always kept a fire at the camp's edge, a beacon for those still wandering. Fire and the silence of beasts. Once, the forest was full of sound, but one day it fell silent. No birds, no animals. People grew afraid. What happened? Ra lit a fire and told them to listen. After a while in the quiet, they heard branches crack, like the forest was answering. He said, "Fire makes the world speak. If it's silent, listen harder." From then on, they knew even silence was full of signs. Fire and the silence of beasts. Once, the forest was full of sound, but one day it fell silent. No birds, no animals. People grew afraid. What happened? Ra lit a fire and told them to listen. After a while, in the quiet, they heard branches crack, like the forest was answering. He said, "Fire makes the world speak. If it's silent, listen harder." From then on, they knew even silence was full of signs. Fire and the scent of home. As the tribe wandered, each night's fire felt different. But one evening, Ra added dried herbs gathered from their old dwelling. The smell changed. It felt like home. The people paused. "This is our home," a woman whispered. Since then, they added a pinch of memory to each fire, and wherever they were, they felt at home. Fire and the cry of the cliff. At the foot of a great cliff, the tribe made camp. That night, when the fire cracked especially loud, a strange sound echoed from the summit, a groan. Ra said, "The cliff is listening. Perhaps it is lonely." They lit a second fire, closer to the stone. The sound stopped. Since then, fires were lit near cliffs, not just for people, but for the land. Fire and the first whistle. A boy sat by the fire, mimicking its sounds, hissing, cracking. Suddenly, he pursed his lips and whistled. Everyone froze. "This sound comes from neither beast nor wind," said Ra. It was the first whistle, a new way to call and signal. Fire had inspired a voice without words. Fire and the puddle mirror. After rain, fire reflected in a puddle by the hearth. Enna stared at it and said, "That's another fire. It watches from below." Ra took a flat stone, poured water onto it, and saw the reflection. He wondered, maybe the world is larger than we think. maybe everything has a twin. And so was born the idea of doubles and worlds beyond, sparked by fire's reflection. Fire and the bird's memory. Each spring, the same bird returned and perched near the fire. They recognized it by a feather on its wing. Ra said, "Even a bird remembers where light once was." They fed it, and then others. A bond was born between tribe and birds. Fire became not only the heart of people, but a signal to the sky. Fire and the starless night. One night, the sky was empty, no stars in sight. The tribe grew uneasy. What if the light is gone forever? Ra laid out a circle of embers, lighting them one by one. "These are our stars. We'll make our own," he said. Sparks were scattered like sky on earth. The fear faded. They realized, when darkness is too deep, they can make their own light. Fire and the first story. As they gathered around the fire, the elder, not Ra, another, spoke. "Do you remember when fire taught us to breathe?" He told a story, not of hunting, not of fear, but of feeling. The people listened, breathless. It was the first story, not of survival, but of life. Fire became more than light. It became the beginning of memory and meaning. When fire spoke that night, when the wind fell still, the flame flickered in a strange way, as if saying yes. Ra, staring into the fire, whispered, "You taught us, warmed us, saved us. Perhaps you are the world's voice?" The tribe fell silent, and in that quiet the fire crackled, not harshly, not loudly, but like a friend. Then they knew. Fire was not just a thing. It was alive, and it was with them. And thus ended the first great chapter, when fire first spoke.